The sun was hot over Lagos. It made the glass buildings shine like blinding mirrors. The afternoon heat made the air above the road look wobbly and wet. A black Bentley sat open in front of the shiny Androtech Systems office. It looked out of place in the busy city traffic. Leo Anderson, the company's CEO, walked fast on the sidewalk. He held his phone tightly. His hard heel taps on the concrete were the only sound louder than his worry. A small breeze didn't cool him much. It pulled at his jacket while he thought fast about the problem. His best engineers stood around him, not knowing what to do. They could not fix the wall of code that stopped Androtech from its biggest launch. "It's just one line of text," he said to everyone and no one. His voice was tired, worn out from worry. "One line and we missed the launch date." He had started this company from nothing. 5 years ago, a plane crash killed his father and his wife. It left him with a new baby son and a broken world. He built Androtech from that sadness, a promise that he would carry on their work. Now, one stubborn line of code could ruin it all. A voice cut through his thoughts. It was low and rough, as if it had not been used much. "I can help you solve it." Leo spun around. The woman looked like she had come from the city's dust and sadness. She was tall and thin. Her eyes looked wild but also very sharp. Her hair was messy and her clothes were dirty and torn. She held a worn-out bag close to her chest, as if it was all she owned. The security guards moved quickly. "Sir, should we make her leave?" one asked, already moving toward her. "No," Leo said, holding up a hand to stop them. He stared at the woman. His tiredness was gone, replaced by strong curiosity. He looked at her smart eyes and her determined jaw. "What did you say?" "I can help you fix your code," the woman repeated. Her voice was steady. She stood still, even though she was surrounded by expensive engineers and armed guards. She seemed to belong to a different world, but she stood there as if she had every right to. And Leo felt he had to listen. One of Leo's young engineers gave a nervous laugh. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. "With respect, sir," he started, pointing at the stranger, "even our best coders couldn't fix it. I don't think—" "Give her the laptop," Leo said, cutting off the man's protest. The air grew still. The engineers looked at each other, confused. The request made no sense. It went against all company rules. The guards waited, unsure what to do. "Sir," the young engineer started again. "Give her the laptop," Leo ordered. His tone was final. The engineer swallowed. He slowly gave the expensive clean machine to the stranger. She took it without a word. She walked to the curb, sat down on the hot road next to the Bentley's tire, and took an old, scratched laptop from her worn bag. She opened it with care. For a moment, everything around her disappeared. The staring engineers, the guards, the powerful man watching her, none of it mattered. Her focus was only on the screen. Her fingers, hard and dirty, found the keyboard and started moving. They typed quickly, like they had a forgotten rhythm. Green lines of code moved up the black screen. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The city's sounds, the horns, the shouts, became a quiet buzz. The only real thing was the quiet focus of the woman on the road. Then, as quickly as she started, she stopped. "It's done," she said softly. Her voice was hard to hear over the traffic. She looked up at Leo. "You were using a code loop in the wrong place. It kept causing a mistake. I rewrote it. You can test it now." Leo took the laptop, his heart beating fast. He gave it to his lead engineer, who quickly ran the check. The red warning signs disappeared one by one. The system worked. The code ran, clean and perfect. He let out a huge breath. He couldn't believe it. He turned back to the woman who was standing up and dusting off her clothes. "Who are you?" She met his eyes. For the first time, he saw a flash of old pain in her eyes. "My name is Billionaire," she said. "I used to be a main software engineer. I had a family, a husband and 2 twin boys. We were happy. I came home every night to hugs." Her voice became far away, lost in a memory. "But one day we went to the park. On the way back, a drunk driver hit us." She paused. The deep sadness in the silence was painful. Leo felt his own old grief stir. "I lost all of them," Banner continued, her voice full of tears. "Samuel, Jerry, Joshua, all gone. I felt like I couldn't live anymore. I quit my job and left everything. I moved under the bridge, I still write code, but not for money, just for myself. It's the only thing that makes me remember who I used to be." Tears pricked Leo's eyes. He quickly blinked them away. The woman's story was like his own, a different sad event, but the same empty feeling at the center. He stepped closer. The distance between the CEO and the homeless woman disappeared. "I am truly sorry, Benna," he said. His voice was soft but firm. "I lost my father and my wife on the same day. A plane crash. I had just become a father to George. I wanted to die too. But I had to stay. For my son. For them." He looked at her with steady eyes. "That pain. I understand it." Benna looked up, truly seeing him for the first time. He didn't look sorry for her. He looked like he knew her pain. They looked at each other. In that moment, they were not a CEO and a woman from the street. They were two people who had survived, two broken souls who found a bit of understanding on a Lagos street. "You are still alive, Benna," he said. The words were a promise to both of them. "You are still breathing. That means there is more for you. I want to help you." She shook her head. Doubt crossed her face. "Why?" "Because someone should have helped me when I felt the worst," he answered simply. He had decided. He turned to his driver, who was watching everything with surprise. "Open the car." Then he turned back to Benna. "Let's go get you some new clothes." She waited for a long time. She was caught between the sadness she knew and the scary hope he offered. Then she slowly nodded. She followed him. The driver opened the door. The smell of new leather and success hit Benna like a wave. As the Bentley drove away, people on the sidewalk stopped, stared, and took photos, trying to understand the strange sight. They drove to an expensive store on Victoria Island. It was a world of clean floors and soft lights. For the first time in years, Benna saw herself in a mirror. The woman looking back was a stranger, thin and scared. She barely knew the ghost of the person she used to be. An hour later, that ghost was gone. They had washed and cut her messy hair. They dressed her in a simple dark blue suit that looked surprisingly nice on her. When she came out, Leo smiled. "You look like a CEO," he said. A small, quiet laugh escaped her. It was a sound she hadn't heard from herself in a very long time. From the store, they drove to the small apartment where she had lived with her family. The memory was a dull ache in her chest. When they got there, the gate was broken. Her old front door was wide open. Inside, the apartment was empty. Everything she hadn't carried with her was gone. She stared at the empty rooms. The silence was heavy. "It's all gone," she whispered. Leo put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Then let's start again." She looked at him, confused. "Where?" "At my home," he answered. "Banana Island." Her mouth dropped open. "You mean it?" "I don't make jokes," he said, giving her a small, kind smile. "And I'm not finished helping you." The security gates of Leo's large house opened quietly as the Bentley drove through. The evening sun painted the sky orange and purple. When the car stopped, the front door opened fast. A small boy ran out. His bare feet hit the stone, and his laughter filled the quiet air. "Daddy, you're home." It was George. He ran into Leo's arms and hugged him tight. Then he stopped. His happy face turned to curiosity when he saw the woman next to his father. He tilted his head. "Who is that?" Leo knelt, pulling his son close. "This is Miss Benna," he said softly. "She's going to help Daddy build something great." George looked at Benna. His young eyes were wide and questioning. Without thinking, he reached out and took Benna's hand. The boy's small, warm grip was a shock. Benna felt her heart crack open a little. Something deep inside her, something that had been buried by sadness and dirt for years, began to breathe again. But as she took her first step toward the grand house, she saw something move across the street. A man in dark glasses stood under a tree, watching them. The man lifted a phone to his ear, his lips moving silently. "Watching," he whispered, before walking away into the evening shadows. Benna felt a sudden worry, but the feeling was quickly lost in the newness of the moment. The next morning, Benna woke up to the strange feeling of soft sheets and a quiet room. Sunlight came through the tall windows. At the foot of the bed, a clean white shirt and fresh pants were neatly laid out. It felt like a dream. a life stolen from someone else. Downstairs, the house was busy with the quiet, organized rhythm of a rich home. George had already left for school. Leo sat on the patio looking at a green garden. He was drinking tea and reading reports on a tablet. He looked up as she came closer, a small smile on his face. She was clean and rested. The last signs of the woman from the street were gone. "You slept well?" he asked. "I did," she said with a nervous laugh. "I feel like I stole someone else's life." "Well, keep it," Leo replied easily. They weren't using it. Later, as they drove toward the Androtech office, Leo pointed out the changes to the city. New stores, wider roads, shiny new buildings that had grown while she was gone. Lagos had kept moving without her. She felt out of place, like a ghost returning to a world that had forgotten her. When they walked through the glass doors of Androtech, silence followed them. Heads turned, talk stopped, employees stared, confused and shocked. They knew the woman from the street, but couldn't believe it was the clean, well-dressed person walking next to their CEO. Leo walked with his usual confidence, nodding to his staff. Bina followed one step behind, her new laptop bag feeling strangely light. Inside the elevator, the metal doors closed, giving them a quiet, private space. Leo looked at her. "Are you ready?" She took a deep breath and nodded firmly. She was ready. But just as the doors opened on the executive floor, Leo's assistant rushed toward them, her face urgent. "I'm sorry to stop you, sir. There's a woman here to see you. She says it's important." Leo frowned. "Who is it?" "She wouldn't say her name," the assistant said, looking nervously at Bina. "But she said it's about her." A cold feeling washed over Bina. Her hands, hidden in her new pockets, clenched. She knew. Before she even saw her, she knew. "I think I know who it is," she whispered. In the waiting area, a woman stood with her back to them, looking out the window at the city. She wore an expensive Ankara dress and gold jewelry. When she turned, her sharp, angry eyes narrowed the moment she saw Bina. "So it's true," she said, her voice like ice. Leo stepped forward, standing slightly in front of Bina. "Can we help you?" "I'm Ngozi," the woman replied, folding her arms. Her eyes never left Bina. "My younger brother Samuel was her husband." Bina felt the air leave her lungs. "Ngozi, what are you doing here?" "I should be asking you that," she snapped, her voice sharp with old anger. "You disappeared after the funeral. You left everything. You didn't even care enough to take Samuel's things from the house. You gave up on his memory." "I lost everything," Bina said quietly. The words felt too small. "No," Ngozi shot back, her voice louder. "You ran away. You didn't even come to the ceremony for Jerry and Joshua 1 year later. We looked for you. We put up signs. Did you know that? Samuel loved you. My nephews loved you. And you just vanished." Bina shook under the weight of the anger. "I was broken," she choked out. "So were all of us," Ngozi cried, "but we didn't stop living." She turned her angry eyes on Leo. "You think you know this woman? You don't. She's a coward who let her pain turn her into a ghost." With that, she grabbed her purse and rushed out. A shocked, heavy silence remained. Bina stood still, feeling numb. "She's right," she whispered, looking at the floor. "Maybe I don't deserve this new chance." Leo reached out, gently touching her arm. The warmth of his touch was a small anchor in the storm of her shame. "She's angry, Bina, and she's sad. But listen to me. You were lost. You found your way back. That is what matters." She looked up at him, her eyes full of tears. "Do you really believe that?" "I do," Leo said firmly, "and I think deep down she does too." Later that afternoon, Leo brought Bina into the programming department. It was a large office, filled with the quiet sound of computers and clicking keyboards. When they entered, the talking stopped. Everyone looked at them. The team stared, recognizing the woman from the sidewalk, the one everyone was talking about. Leo stood before them. His presence made the room pay attention. "This is Bina," he said clearly. "She's going to be helping us on Project Nova." A wave of quiet talk went through the room. Doubt and disbelief were on their faces. The woman they had laughed at was now being presented as a co-worker. But then Bina started to speak. She didn't talk about her past or their staring. She talked about code. She pointed to the whiteboard where complicated plans were drawn. She asked questions quietly but confidently. She saw a possible problem in the data system. She suggested a better way to organize the calls between systems. She explained how a small change in the library could make the system 20% faster. The quiet talking stopped. The room became silent and attentive. One by one, the engineers listened closely. Their doubt turned to respect. They saw it then, not the homeless woman, but the brilliant mind of a lead engineer. "What if we use a different way to load the software parts?" one of the senior developers asked, testing her. "We can," Bina replied quickly, "but it will cause a problem when the system starts if the network is slow. We should use this instead." She drew some quick code on the board. It was smart, simple, and clearly correct. The feeling in the room changed. It was no longer about where she had come from. It was about what she knew. Leo watched from his office, a feeling of pride growing in his chest. He had trusted his feeling, and he was right. That evening, as the sky over Banana Island turned purple, Leo and Bina sat on the balcony. They were drinking cool juice. The day's stress was gone, replaced by a comfortable quiet. Inside, George was asleep, hugging his toy lion. "You fit in today," Leo said, breaking the silence. "I felt like me again," she replied, a hint of wonder in her voice. It was a feeling she thought she had lost forever. They sat for a moment, watching the first stars appear. Then he asked softly, "Did you ever think this would happen?" Bina shook her head, smiling sadly. "I thought I would die under that bridge." "But you didn't," he said gently. She turned to look at him. The dim light showed the emotion in her eyes. They looked at each other just like that first day. Something unsaid passed between them, a new connection, uncertain but warm. She opened her mouth to say something, but Leo's phone buzzed on the small table. He picked it up. As he read the screen, his face became dark. The warmth of the moment was gone, replaced by sudden coldness. Bina leaned forward, worry tightening in her stomach. "What is it?" Leo's eyes, now wide with alarm, met hers. "I think someone is trying to ruin the company." Leo's hands shook. The phone screen shone with a bad light in the growing darkness. He just stared at the message, his face showing disbelief. "Leo, what is wrong?" Bina asked quickly. Without a word, he gave her the phone. A short, nameless email was on the screen. The words were simple and scary. "Your new pet project will crash your system from the inside. One wrong line and everything collapses. You trusted the wrong woman." Bina read it twice. The accusation hit her hard. The worry in her stomach twisted tighter. "They think I am the danger," she whispered. "No," Leo said. His voice became strong again, with a sharp edge of command. "They want me to think that. This is not just a threat. This is someone trying to create fear and confusion." "But who would send this?" "That's what we will find out," he said, standing up. His fear had turned into resolve. "And we won't fight it with panic. We'll fight it with a plan." The next morning, the glass conference room at Androtech was tense. Leo had called an emergency meeting with his top security team. Bina sat next to him, feeling the weight of their suspicious looks. She was the outsider, the wrong woman. The engineers pulled up the system logs for Project Nova. As they looked through thousands of code lines, one of them suddenly stopped. "Wait a minute." He pointed to a part of the core system. "There's a small piece of code here. It doesn't match any of our records. It's like someone sneaked it in." "It's pretending to be a normal system check," another engineer added. "It's smart." Bina leaned forward, looking at the screen. "Can I see it?" The engineers looked at Leo for permission. He gave a firm nod. "Let her." Bina stared at the bad code. Her mind worked fast. She saw it right away. It was a small code loop, hidden to look like a simple time check. It looked harmless, but she saw its real purpose. When the program started and reached a certain load, the loop would turn on. It would secretly ruin the main user database, destroying every piece of information. It was an act of pure corporate destruction, designed to hurt the company badly from the inside. She looked up, looking at the faces of the engineers in the room. "This was not an accident," she said. "Someone on your team did this." Gasps and denials filled the room. "What?" "That's impossible," one of the team leaders said. Only a few of us have this level of access. It must be someone very close to the project. The engineers started looking at each other. A new, more dangerous suspicion appeared in their eyes. The threat was not from outside. It was from inside. Leo's hand clenched on the table. "I want a full check of the entire system," he ordered. "Every record, every login, every single button press. I want to know who wrote that code and when." Meanwhile, across town, in a dark office lit only by computer screens, a man sat at a desk. He wore headphones, listening. On one screen, a video loop of Bina arriving at the company with Leo played. Behind him, Ngozi walked back and forth angrily. "She's rebuilding her life," she said, her voice cold and mean, "with the man who should have been my brother's enemy." The man at the desk looked up. "You said she was broken." "She was," Ngozi hissed, "but that man, Leo, he's changing her, he's giving her a new life. And you want her gone." Ngozi's eyes became narrow with hate. "No," she said, "I don't want her gone. I want her to remember that her happiness cost my family everything. I want her to suffer all over again." Bina returned to the programming department with quiet, sharp focus. She knew people were watching her. She could feel the team's suspicion. Leo offered to let her work from his home, away from the staring and talking, but she refused. She couldn't run. She had to stay, to prove she was loyal, to help find the person who was trying to destroy everything Leo had built. It was just after 4 in the afternoon when the loud sound of the fire alarm broke the office's tense quiet. Red lights flashed, giving an eerie glow to the panicked faces of the employees. "Leave immediately," a calm, automated voice repeated from the ceiling speakers. "Fire emergency started." People rushed from their desks, grabbing bags. Leo came out of his office, looking worried and annoyed. "What now?" he muttered. As they joined the stream of people heading for the stairs, Bina looked at a system monitor in the hallway. The screen showed the building's plan, but there were no heat signs, no smoke alarms going off. "There's no fire," she said quickly, turning to Leo. "The system was set off by someone outside." "Another attack?" he asked, his eyes hardening. "Yes," she confirmed, "a way to cause trouble, a way to create more chaos." They followed the staff out into the big parking lot. Bina looked at the crowd, her mind racing. And then she saw her. Standing at the edge of the parking lot, partly hidden by a delivery truck, was Ngozi. She wore dark glasses, her arms folded, watching. A cold shiver ran down Bina's spine. Their eyes met for a second. Then Ngozi turned and started to walk away, disappearing into the busy street. Bina's heart pounded. Without thinking, she ran after her. "Bina!" Leo called, but she didn't stop. She ran between cars, her new shoes hitting the pavement. "Ngozi!" she shouted. Ngozi didn't slow down. Bina finally caught up to her at the street corner, grabbing her arm. "What are you doing here?" she asked, breathing hard. Ngozi pulled her arm away. Her face was full of hate. "What do you think, Bina? I came to see how fast you are climbing back up, after falling so low." "Why are you doing this? The emails, the alarm, was that you? What do you want from me?" "I want you to feel it," she snapped, her voice shaking with painful anger. "I want you to feel the weight of what I live with every day. You think you lost everything? I lost my brother, I lost my nephews. But I stayed, I fixed things. And you ran away and hid." "I broke," Bina shouted, her own pain showing. "I lost myself." Ngozi's expression softened, just for a moment. "And now you're Leo Anderson's new pet project," she sneered, "his little story of being saved. Just you wait, Bina. One day he'll wake up and realize what a mistake he made. He'll regret ever saving you." Bina was determined. "I'm not running anymore, Ngozi." Ngozi gave her a cold smile. "We'll see." She turned and walked away, disappearing into the Lagos crowd. Bina was left standing on the street, caught between her painful past and her fragile present. That evening, the smell of jollof rice and grilled chicken filled the kitchen of Leo's home. It was a warm, comforting smell, a strong contrast to the cold fear that stayed in Bina's heart. George sat at the kitchen counter, happily drawing superheroes, his talk a small island of normal life. But Bina was quiet, staring at her plate, Ngosi's bitter words in her mind. Leo moved around the kitchen easily, but Bina could see the worry in his eyes. "Did you see her again?" he asked softly, already knowing the answer. Bina nodded, not looking up. "Ngozi." Leo was silent for a moment. He sat on the stool next to her. "Do you think she is the one behind the threats?" "I don't know," she admitted, "but she wants to punish me. She blames me for everything." "You can't live with that blame forever, Bina," Leo said gently. "You were in pain. You are still getting better." "But what if she's right?" Bina whispered, finally meeting his eyes. "What if I don't deserve any of this? What if I don't deserve peace?" Leo leaned closer. His eyes were soft and full of understanding. "You can't buy peace, Bina," he said. "You just have to let it find you." They looked at each other. The same strong connection from the night before was there again. It felt like coming home, of being truly seen. But just as the quiet moment grew, Leo's phone buzzed on the counter. Another message. He frowned as he looked at it. This time there was no text. It was just a video file. With a growing sense of fear, he pressed play. The video was fuzzy, clearly filmed by a hidden camera. It showed the inside of his office. It showed Bina sitting alone at his desk. The video was cleverly cut and pasted to make it look like she was typing bad code into his system. It was a lie, but a very believable one. Leo's face went white. He put his hand over his mouth. "Bina, this isn't real, is it?" he whispered, his voice shaking. She stood up, shocked, staring at the screen. She remembered being in his office, waiting for him to finish a call. But this was a twisted lie. "No," she said, shaking her head. "I didn't. This is false. Someone is setting me up." Leo looked up from the phone. His heart was pounding. But who would do all this? Then a new message popped up on the screen. A final, terrible choice. "If you don't fire her, the next video we send will destroy your company." The next morning, an unnatural quiet filled Leo's office. It felt heavy and hard to breathe. He sat behind his desk, staring at the screen. He had watched the fake video many times. Each time felt like a fresh cut of a knife. The editing was smart, perfect, to the board, to his investors, to anyone who didn't know the woman he had come to trust. It would look like proof she betrayed him. But he did know her. He remembered how quickly she fixed his code, the small, shy laugh he had heard, the deep sadness in her voice when she talked about her lost family. These were not the actions of a traitor. Still, a small, cold doubt had been planted. What if he was wrong? What if his own sadness made him blind? Bina entered the office slowly, unsure. She could feel the change in the air, the invisible wall between them. "You called for me," she said gently. Leo closed his laptop with a quiet click. "Yes, I need to talk to you." He looked up. She saw the tiredness on his face. "Bina, someone is trying to ruin my company from the inside," he said, his voice flat, missing its usual warmth. "And right now, all the fake proof is pointing right at you." "I didn't do it, Leo. You must believe me." "I know," he whispered. The word was a fragile thread of hope. "But the company board wants answers. My investors are scared. I've protected you so far, but they are demanding an emergency investigation." Her face fell. The fragile world he had built for her was breaking. "They think I planted that bad code. They think you tricked me," he corrected, pain in his voice. "They think you targeted me from the start, that you earned my trust just to get into my systems." Her chest tightened. It was hard to breathe. She had to know. "Do you believe that?" Leo looked at her for a long time. He saw the desperation in her eyes, the terror of being thrown back into darkness. "No," he said softly, clearly, "but if we don't find out who is really behind this, and fast, they will force me to fire you. I'll lose control of my own company." A heavy silence filled the room. Every second was a step closer to the end. Then Bina spoke, her voice low but firm. "Give me 48 hours. He looked at her, confused. "What?" "Give me 2 days, she begged, stepping closer to his desk. "I can prove who's doing this. I can trace the code, find the real saboteur. I know what to look for. Please, Leo, just 2 days." He studied her face. He saw the strong will that had replaced the fear. He saw the brilliant engineer, the survivor. He saw the woman he had trusted from the very start. With a slow nod, he decided, "You have 48 hours," he said. "After that, I cannot protect you anymore." Bina didn't waste a second. She went straight from Leo's office to the server room, a cold space filled with humming machines. She asked for a secure computer, a machine that was not connected to the internet or the company's network. She couldn't risk the traitor knowing they were being hunted. She worked with a fierce, single focus. The world outside the server room was forgotten. There were no whispers, no suspicious looks, only the cool light of the monitor and endless lines of raw code. She started going through the system logs, huge amounts of data recording every action, every login, every button press on the network for the past month. She was looking for a ghost, something that didn't belong. A single digital sign left behind by someone trying to hide their actions. Hours passed. She only drank water. Her eyes burned from staring at the screen, but she didn't stop. She was back in her element. The chaos of her life was gone, replaced by the pure, cold logic of the machine. She looked for things that were wrong. She compared login times with security camera videos. She checked the details of every file connected to Project Nova. She was looking for a mistake an insider would make, a mistake they made because they felt safe inside the company. And then, late into the second night, she found it. It was a script, hidden in a folder for old useless files. The folder was named test_archive, a place no one would think to look. The script itself was the bad code that would wipe the database. But the most important piece of evidence was its file details. The timestamp was changed, cleverly made to look like the file was created months ago, long before Bina came to Androtech. It was a smart move, but not smart enough. Bina found the digital sign of the tool used to change the timestamp. And that tool's log file, buried deep in another folder, had not been erased. It showed exactly when the change was made, 2 days ago, during the chaos of the fake fire drill. There was more. The script had a forgotten admin password written in it, a lazy mistake, and the final terrible piece of evidence, the test_archive folder, had restricted access. Only one person on the entire team, besides Leo, had the permission to access it. Frank, Leo's senior systems engineer. The same man who had laughed when a homeless woman offered to fix their code just a few weeks ago. Bina printed the logs. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from a mix of tiredness and sudden energy. She had found the ghost. Later that evening, Frank was called to Leo's office. He walked in, pretending to be worried, asking if the investigation had made any progress. Leo sat behind his desk, his face calm but cold. Bina stood near the window, silent, holding a thin file of printed documents. "Frank, we need to talk to you about the sabotage," Leo began, his voice calm. "Of course," Frank said, sitting down. "Anything I can do to help. It's a terrible thing, especially with her around." He looked down at Bina. Bina stepped forward and put the printed logs on the clean surface of Leo's desk. "We found the script, Frank." Frank's confidence broke. He looked at the papers, a flash of fear in his eyes. This is not mine," he stuttered. "I've never seen this." "We traced the digital sign of the time-changing tool to your login ID," Leo said, his voice still quiet, but now like steel. "The records show it was used from your computer during the fire drill. Only someone with your high-level access could have put the file in a restricted folder." Frank's face went white. His hands started to shake. "No, I was framed. Someone must have used my machine while I was outside." "Your personal password was written right in the script, Frank," Bina added, her voice flat. "It's a password you use for your other accounts. We checked. Only you could have written it." The last piece of evidence hit Frank hard. He lost all control. The fight went out of him, replaced by raw, angry confusion. Leo leaned forward, his eyes fixed on him. "Why, Frank? Why would you do this to a company you helped build?" He finally broke. "Because you made her the hero," he shouted, pointing a shaking finger at Bina. "I have worked here for 8 years. I built this company with you. Then some dirty woman shows up off the street, and in 2 weeks, she's the star. You gave her access. You gave her your trust. His voice dropped to a bitter whisper. You even gave her your heart. Bina's eyes widened. So did Leo's. The depth of Frank's bitter jealousy was more shocking than the sabotage itself. I just wanted things to be normal again, Frank muttered, defeated. Just then the office door opened and 2 security guards came in. Leo gave them a single, sharp nod. Escort him out, he said coldly, and shut down all of his accounts immediately. They took Frank by the arms. As they led him away, he was still shouting, his voice echoing down the hall. You'll regret this, Leo. You'll see. The doors closed. A heavy silence fell over the office. Leo leaned back in his chair. The tension finally left his body, making him look tired and sad. He looked at Bina. His eyes were full of relief, regret, and something else, something deeper. The crisis was over. The traitor was found, but the emotional damage was just beginning. As the sound of Frank's shouting faded, Leo let out a long, shaky breath and rested his head against his chair. I should have known, he whispered. He's been with me from the beginning. I never thought. Bina stepped forward. The space between them was charged with the emotion of the last 48 hours. You believed in me, she said softly, even when things looked bad, even when you had every reason not to. He looked up at her, and she saw tears in his eyes. I did, he agreed, but for a moment. I was scared. Not just for the company. I was scared for George, for me. I was scared of being fooled again. I understand, she said, and she truly did. He had built walls around his heart to protect it, just as she had. She paused. The words she had kept inside for weeks needed to come out. Leo, she began, her voice thick with emotion, you saved me. I was gone. I had given up on life. But you pulled me out of the darkness, little by little. You brought me back to the world. He stood up and walked around the desk to stand in front of her. Their eyes spoke of shared loss, of unexpected hope, of a bond made strong by crisis. Without a word, he reached for her hand. She let him take it. Their fingers linked together. Just then a small voice echoed from the doorway. Daddy? Miss Bina, are you okay? George stood there, holding a piece of paper, his eyes wide with concern. Leo's face softened. A real smile broke through his tiredness. We're okay, sweetheart. We're better than okay. George ran in and held up his drawing. I made this for you, he said, handing it to Bina. It was a simple drawing of 3 stick figures, a woman, a man, and a small boy, standing together in front of a computer screen, all smiling. Bina knelt. She took the drawing with both hands, as if it were the most precious thing. She stared at the small, happy family on the paper, her own eyes filled with tears. I never thought I'd have this again, she whispered. That weekend, Leo took Bina and George to a nice dinner at a rooftop restaurant. The city lights shone below them like stars. The moon made the calm water of the lagoon shine silver. As they finished dessert, Leo looked across the table at Bina. His expression was serious, his voice a little shaky but strong. Bina, I need to ask you something. She looked up, her heart jumped. What is it? He reached across the table and put his hand on hers. Will you marry me? The world around her seemed to stop. The soft music, the distant city sound, the gentle wind. It all went quiet. She couldn't breathe. I know it's fast, he continued, smiling nervously, but I've thought about it every day. You're kind and brilliant. You've made my son smile more than anyone has in years. And you make me feel alive again. Slowly, Bina stood up. Her voice cracked when she finally spoke. I've wanted to tell you I love you for weeks, she said, but I was so afraid you would say no. Leo laughed, a soft, happy sound. I would never say no. Then yes, she said, her voice full of a certainty that filled every broken place inside her. Yes, I will marry you. From across the table, George shouted with joy, throwing his hands in the air. Yay, I'm getting twin brothers. Leo blinked, laughing. Twin brothers. Bina smiled, a wide, real smile that reached her eyes. I just have a feeling. Far below, in a car parked near the restaurant, Ngozi lowered her binoculars. She had been watching them. But the anger on her face was gone, replaced by tired uncertainty. She sighed a deep breath and took out a worn photograph from her purse. It was of her brother, Samuel, and his two smiling boys. Maybe, she whispered to the photograph, maybe she really did deserve a second chance after all. The church on Victoria Island was white, filled with the smell of fresh roses and gentle, hopeful music. The seats were full of guests from every part of Leo's life, company leaders, friends and loyal employees. But for Benna, standing at the altar in a simple white dress, none of them mattered. Her eyes were fixed on the large wooden doors at the back of the church. Then the crowd quieted. The doors opened. There he was. Leo was handsome in his cream-colored agbada, full of grace and strength. He walked down the aisle holding George's hand, his eyes locked on Bina's. When he reached the altar, George smiled proudly and took his place as the ring-bearer. As they said their vows, their voices clear and steady, everyone was teary-eyed. They were not just two people getting married. They were two worlds joining, two broken hearts becoming whole again. Later at the party, under a large tent lit by thousands of warm lights, the air was full of laughter and the sound of glasses clinking. Bina stood to give a short speech, her voice quiet and deeply thankful. "Some of you knew me as the woman under the bridge," she began, looking at the crowd. "Some of you didn't know me at all, but today I stand here as a woman reborn. Not because I got lucky, but because someone chose to believe in me when I had stopped believing in myself." She turned to Leo, who was holding a sleepy George. He didn't see a broken woman. He saw someone worth saving. The crowd applauded. Then Leo took the microphone, his face glowing. "We have one more announcement to make," he said, a playful look in his eye. The guests leaned in. Bina stepped forward, smiling widely. "I'm pregnant," she said, her eyes twinkling, "with twins." The tent erupted with joy. Leo stared at her, trying to process her words. Then he covered his face with his hands as tears of disbelief and huge happiness ran down his cheeks. He walked over to her, knelt before her stomach, and placed a trembling hand on it. "Jerry, Joshua," he whispered, "welcome back." 3 months later, the Bentley drove through the familiar streets of Vienna's old neighborhood. The apartment building had been fixed up. Its faded walls were now painted in bright colors. Children ran and played in the courtyard where her own sons had once kicked a ball. She asked Leo to stop the car next to a small concrete bench in front of a dusty store. "This is where I used to sit," she said softly. "Every evening I'd sit here and wait for Samuel to come out with the boys." Leo put a gentle hand on her arm. "You don't have to remember it if it's too painful." "No," she said, turning to him with a small, sad smile. "I want to. Because when I remember them now, I'm not broken anymore. I just feel thankful. They gave me something I still carry with me." She paused. "Love." She reached into her bag and took out her old battered laptop. "Are you sure you want to touch that thing again?" Leo joked gently. She smiled. "This laptop carried my pain for too long," she said. "It's time it starts carrying purpose." Inspired by her own journey, Bina started a new program. She called it Code for Hope. It was a free tech training program for homeless and jobless young people across Nigeria. With Leo's full support and Androtech's money, the program quickly became famous. Under the same bridge where she had once slept on cardboard, she now stood before a group of eager teenagers, teaching them how to write their first lines of code. "Every line you write," she told them with passion, "is proof that your mind still works, that your spirit is still alive, even when your world feels like it's falling apart." News stations covered her story. Reporters called it the greatest comeback of the decade. Her face was on magazine covers, her story became a symbol of hope. Then she was asked to be the main speaker at the youth conference for Africa's tech future in Lagos. Standing on a large stage before thousands of young faces and a global audience, Bina adjusted the microphone. "I once had everything," she began, "a good job, a wonderful husband, 2 amazing twin boys. Then one day a drunk driver stole everything from me. I tried to die inside. I let my sadness take over. I stopped believing in the world. Until someone believed in me." She paused, her eyes finding Leo in the front row. "His name is Leo." He gave me a second chance, not because I asked, but because he saw that I needed it. And now I spend my days giving chances to others. She looked directly into the camera. To anyone out there who feels broken, who has lost something, or someone you thought you couldn't live without, this is your sign. Don't give up. Your story is not over. It's just beginning. The hall filled with loud applause. People stood up. Her message quickly became popular online. From homeless to hope, Bina lives. 1 year later, the warm sun shone into the living room of their Banana Island home. The house was filled with the soft, happy sounds of their newborn twin boys, Jerry and Joshua, who were sleeping in a cradle. Leo sat on the sofa, watching them, looking peaceful. Nearby, George, now 7, sat on the floor next to Bina, looking at a tablet. "Mum, I think you forgot a semicolon," he said, pointing a small finger at a line of code. Bina laughed, running her hand through her stepson's hair. "You're right, smart boy." The doorbell rang, a gentle sound that broke the peaceful home scene. Bina went to answer it. It was Ngozi. She stood quietly at the gate, looking unsure, almost shy. In her hands, she held a large gift bag and a small white envelope. "I came to see the babies," she said softly. Bina nodded and opened the gate, letting her in. As she walked past, Ngozi whispered, so quietly Bina almost didn't hear it, "I'm sorry, Bena, for everything." Bina looked at her. She saw the real regret in her eyes. The last bit of Bina's own pain and anger finally melted away. She smiled, a true forgiving smile. "I forgive you, Ngozi." Ngozi looked relieved, as if a great weight had been lifted. Bina watched her go inside to greet Leo and meet her new nephews. She thought about the long, painful journey that brought her here. In the end, after being given a second chance at life, love, and motherhood, she chose to forgive. She had been shown kindness when she expected only judgment. She knew she had to offer the same. Why should she hold on to anger, she asked herself, when her own heart was so full? Her purpose was no longer about pain, but about the endless power of hope.